In the cold stretch of space near the edge of Council territory, a patrol ship drifted silently. Its crew, a mix of insectoid Tyri and crystalline Varnari, sat in routine boredom. They had watched empty stars for years. Nothing ever happened this far out. Until now. The ship's sensors lit up with alerts. Unidentified objects, no emissions, no heat signatures, no drive trails, just shadows slipping through the void. The captain leaned forward, eyes wide. Stealth vessels? No. They're not even registering mass. The darkness moved with purpose, surrounding the patrol ship before vanishing just as quickly. One crew member, trembling, whispered in fear. They were silent. Like death itself. Within hours, the news reached the United Galactic Council. On the moon of Caltris, an emergency summit was called. Caltris was a neutral zone, often used for high-level diplomacy. Orbiting a dying red star, the moon was barren, quiet, and far from crowded space lanes. It was the perfect place to discuss sensitive matters. Warships from all 23 Council species gathered in orbit, forming a ring of steel and energy. Inside the Great Council Hall, built into the rock of the moon, the atmosphere buzzed with unease. Delegates murmured, afraid of what they'd heard. A fleet of unknown ships, undetectable and unstoppable. Then, a voice echoed through every channel. Calm. Human. This is Captain Jack Voss of the Terran Union. I come as a representative of Earth with peaceful intentions. The silence that followed was louder than any explosion. Earth? Earth had left the Council half a century ago, a forgotten world too weak to matter. When the last Terran ambassador departed, the Council didn't even file a protest. Earth had fallen behind in technology, had no fleets, and posed no threat. Most believed it collapsed in isolation. But now Jack Voss had returned, not with words, but with power. The delegates rushed to their windows and holoscreens as a ship appeared above Caltris. It was black as the void, shaped like a spearhead, and moved without sound or light. Sensors couldn't track it. Energy readings came up empty. The ship simply existed. More followed, 5, then 10, then an entire fleet. They hovered in formation like ghosts above the Council moon. No weapons were raised. No signals jammed. Just the presence of power that shouldn't exist. Inside the chamber, High Chancellor Krell Exor stood slowly. His skin shimmered with a silver-blue light. As the leader of the Council, he had faced pirate kings, planetary rebellions, and rogue AI networks. But this was something else. Earth sends warships instead of ambassadors, he growled, voice sharp. Is this diplomacy or a threat? A hologram shimmered in the center of the chamber. Captain Jack Voss appeared, tall, clean-cut, dressed in a black uniform with no visible rank or weapons. His face was calm, his tone controlled. We come in peace, Chancellor, he said, but we will not come in weakness. Krell's eyes narrowed. 50 years of silence, and now you return with ships even our best minds cannot understand. Where did Earth get such power? Voss didn't answer directly. We seek recognition, not conquest. The Terran Union wishes to re-establish ties with the Council, but we will not bow. The chamber erupted in shouts and protests. Some called for immediate sanctions. Others urged caution. A few watched Jack Voss with quiet respect. Among the chaos, Krell remained still. You expect us to believe that Earth built this in 50 years? Jack Voss met his gaze. We didn't build it. We earned it. With that, the hologram vanished. Outside, the dark matter warships held position, silent, unmoving, untouchable. Inside, the Council's unity began to crack. Fear had returned to the stars. The halls of the United Galactic Council had never been this tense. The air was heavy with unease. Delegates from 23 star systems sat around a wide, circular chamber carved into the stone of Caltris. The lights above glowed dim blue, casting long shadows on the polished obsidian floor. Hollow screens displayed the Terran fleet outside, motionless and quiet, like predators waiting in the dark. High Chancellor Krell Exor stood at the center of the room. His tall frame shimmered with the metallic skin of the Ivarelian species. His voice echoed with practiced authority. We must act, Krell declared, eyes sweeping across the room. Earth has returned with warships powered by unknown forces. They refuse to explain. They refuse to disarm. This is a threat to all we have built. Some delegates nodded in agreement. Others looked unsure. A few whispered among themselves. Sitting near the edge of the chamber was Counselor Aryan Vel, the representative of the aquatic Ternassi Dominion. His long blue neck waved gently with thought. Earth does not fire. They speak of peace, Aryan said slowly. They ask only for recognition, not war. We must not act from fear. Fear. That was the word unspoken but felt by everyone in the room. It had been 50 years since humanity last sat among the council. Back then, Earth had been small, a developing species. Ambitious, yes, but lacking ships, influence, or allies. When they left the council, most believed they had given up, that they would fade away. Now, without warning, they returned with ships that defied logic. Ships that couldn't be tracked. Ships that gave off no heat, no sound, no trace of power, yet floated above Caltris like giants in the dark. Where had they come from? Inside the council chamber, arguments began to rise. Their silence is a challenge, barked Counselor Tharn of the Dathari Empire, his reptilian jaws clenching. They hide behind vague words and terrifying weapons. Yet they haven't fired a single shot, replied Counselor Mava of the Ilari, a race of energy beings that flickered with calm. They came here to speak. Let us listen. They refused to explain the origin of their warships, said Krell, raising his voice. We cannot allow a rogue power to rise in secret. We must demand transparency or enforce it. That word, enforce, hung in the air like a knife. At that moment, a soft chime echoed in the room. A new message had arrived. A hologram shimmered into view. Captain Jack Voss stood once again in the center of the council chamber. His face remained unreadable, calm, controlled. You fear what you do not understand, he began. That is natural. But fear must not lead you to war. Krell stepped forward. Then explain yourself, Captain. Tell us what those ships are. Where you got them. What powers them. Tell us why Earth vanished, and why you return with a fleet unlike anything the galaxy has ever seen. Jack paused. His eyes scanned the room. Earth spent the last 50 years in silence because we chose to survive on our own, he said. We found something. We studied. We learned. We prepared. Krell interrupted sharply. You admit these are not human creations? Jack's eyes narrowed slightly. I admit that Earth is no longer what you remember. We are not here to rule, but we will not be ruled. The hologram vanished again. The chamber erupted. Some delegates stood and shouted. Others argued in private corners. Allies were made. Lines were drawn. Counselor Aryan Vel called for patience. We must investigate. Yes. But war is not the answer. Counselor Tharn demanded action. They refused to explain. That is answer enough. Krell watched quietly now. He had planted the seed of fear. It was growing fast. By the end of the session, no decision had been made. But the divide was clear. Several members wanted peace and diplomacy. They saw Earth as a possible ally, or at least, a mystery worth understanding. Others, led by Krell and the Dathari, saw Earth as a threat to the balance of power, to their control. As the delegates left the chamber, Krell remained behind, watching the dark matter ships outside the viewport. Their hulls shimmered like black mirrors, absorbing the light of the dying star. Where did you get them, Jack Voss? Krell whispered to himself. And what are you hiding? He turned and tapped a small device on his wrist. Send in the operative. I want someone inside that Terran flagship. Tonight. Outside, in the cold silence of space, the warships waited. Watching. Unmoving. Unseen by sensors. Unfathomable. Inside the council, fear grew. And with it, the first sparks of conflict. Captain Jack Voss stood on the observation deck of the Obsidian Shadow, the lead warship of Earth's fleet. The stars outside were still, scattered like dust across the black sea of space. Below, the council moon of Caltris turned slowly in the shadows of its dying red sun. Behind Jack, the warship's bridge was quiet. The crew worked in silence, trained to move without waste. There were no blinking lights or loud beeping consoles like in the old Terran days. The ship was built, or more accurately, awakened, using technology humanity had barely begun to understand. Jack didn't fully trust it. He had commanded many ships before, but this one felt different, as if it was watching him too. His mind drifted back 50 years, to the beginning, to when it all changed. He had been a young commander then, part of Earth's last desperate exploration team. The Council had dismissed humanity. Trade had collapsed. Earth was isolated and declining. But deep in the Kuiper Belt, far beyond Pluto's orbit, Earth's long-range sensors picked up a strange anomaly, cold, massive, and unnatural. A fleet of old Terran exploration ships was sent to investigate. Jack had been one of the first to land. What they found beneath the ice was no asteroid. It was a structure, buried, ancient, and alien. A vault carved into a mountain of frozen rock, sealed tight for eons. Its walls were black and smooth, without markings or doors. But when Jack approached, the vault opened. No one knew why. Maybe it had been waiting. Inside were the warships. They were unlike anything human or alien. Each vessel was made of a black, liquid-like metal that hardened instantly on contact. The ships had no engines, no fuel ports, no visible weapons. They moved silently when commanded and responded only to the minds of those who entered first, Jack and his team. Some of the scientists called it a neural lock. Others said the ships had bonded to them. But whatever the reason, the warships had accepted only one master, Earth. The Terran Union government decided to keep the discovery secret. They cut all communications, withdrew from the Council, and focused all resources on unlocking the ship's technology. Years turned into decades. Progress was slow and dangerous. One ship exploded without warning during testing. Another activated in orbit and vanished for 3 days, returning with unknown symbols etched into its hull. The AI systems were not made by humans, but they responded to human thoughts and voice commands, sometimes before commands were even spoken. The scientists feared the truth: the ships might be alive. But the Terran leadership knew one thing: whoever had built these vessels, they had left behind a weapon Earth could not afford to waste. A soft chime pulled Jack back to the present. Commander Rena, his second-in-command, approached. Her short hair was tied back, and her eyes held the same focus Jack had seen in the field years ago. "Security sweep complete, Captain," she said. "No Council vessels near the perimeter." But internal sensors caught something strange. Jack turned. Define strange. Rena held up a data pad. A life signature appeared in the engineering deck. Just for a moment. Not one of ours. Jack's jaw tightened. "They sent someone." "I believe so." He nodded. "Seal all decks. Increase internal security protocols to level 5. And no alerts sent to the Council." "Not yet." Rena hesitated. "You think they're here to steal data?" "I think Krell Exor doesn't believe in peace," Jack said. "And he's running out of patience." Elsewhere, deep in the lower sections of the Obsidian Shadow, shadows moved. A figure in sleek, reflective armor crept through the maintenance corridors. The suit shimmered to match the walls, almost invisible. It was one of the Council's elite operatives, agents trained to infiltrate the most secure facilities in the galaxy. The operative slipped into a data chamber, silently planting a spike into the console. Instantly, the lights dimmed. The console pulsed with strange energy. A voice echoed from nowhere. "Deep. Alien. Unauthorized access detected." The operative froze. The screen turned black. Then a shape appeared, an eye, glowing red. The room began to shift. The walls seemed to ripple, as if the ship were alive and angry. The console melted into itself. The operative tried to run, but the doors sealed shut. A soft hum filled the air. Then silence. On the bridge, an alert sounded. Jack and Rena rushed to the engineering deck. When they arrived, the door was already open. Inside, nothing was left but a melted console and a single object, a small, silver insignia marked with the Council's seal. Jack picked it up, studied it quietly, then looked at Rena. "They were warned," he said. "And the ship responded, on its own." Rena frowned. "Captain, do we even control these ships anymore?" Jack didn't answer right away. He looked at the walls, the lights, the stillness. The Obsidian Shadow was silent, but not dead. "Sometimes I wonder if we ever did," he said. Outside, the rest of the Terran fleet floated like ghosts above the Council moon. They hadn't moved. They didn't need to. Inside, Jack Voss prepared for the next meeting. The truth was growing harder to hide, and the galaxy was getting more afraid by the hour. The next day, the Council chamber buzzed with unrest. Delegates arrived early. Conversations were hushed but urgent. Word had spread. A Council operative had gone missing, last seen boarding the Terran flagship, Obsidian Shadow. No response from the humans. No body. No explanation. High Chancellor Krell Exor stood taller than ever, his silver-blue skin pulsing with quiet fury. He waited for silence, then raised one hand. "I warned you," Krell said coldly. "Earth hides its weapons. Now it hides its crimes. We send an operative, non-lethal, non-invasive, and they respond with disappearance." Counselor Mava, glowing with soft yellow light, replied calmly, "The mission was unauthorized. We don't know what happened aboard that ship." "We know what we didn't get," answers, Krell snapped. "Earth refuses transparency. Their silence is no longer a choice. It's defiance." Across the chamber, opinions split. Some nodded in agreement. Others exchanged concerned glances. Earth had not attacked. But now, an operative was gone, and fear was spreading like wildfire. Krell turned to the chamber's high console. "As of now," he said, "I move to revoke Earth's protected status. I propose immediate military pressure, forced inspection of all Terran vessels and facilities. The room exploded in sound. Delegates shouted over each other, some in protest, others in support. Counselor Arjen Vel rose from his seat, his long neck swaying. "This is madness," he said. "We risk war with a force we do not understand. We don't even know how their ships work, and you want to provoke them." Krell's voice cut through. "They will respect strength. If we act now, we maintain control." Silence followed. All eyes turned to the center of the room as a hologram shimmered into place. Captain Jack Voss appeared once again, taller than most, his eyes steady, hands behind his back. "We received your operative," Jack said calmly. "He attempted unauthorized access to our ship's core systems. He triggered a defense response. No harm was intended. The ship acted on instinct." Krell stepped forward. "So now the ships think?" Jack didn't blink. "We've learned they are more than machines. But they are not hostile unless provoked. They responded to intrusion, just as your own systems would." Krell's voice turned sharp. "Then let us inspect them. Open your fleet. Let the Council verify your claims." Jack's gaze was like stone. "We will not surrender our defense to those who already spy on us." Krell slammed his fist on the console. "Then you leave us no choice." Before the argument could spiral further, Jack lifted a hand. "Perhaps," he said, "a demonstration is needed." The hologram vanished. Above Caltris, the obsidian shadow began to move. The Terran fleet remained in position, but the lead ship glided forward, slow, silent, smooth. On the Council warships, alerts lit up. Defense systems activated. Targeting arrays locked on. But they couldn't see the Terran ship. Not really. It wasn't registering on scanners. No engine signatures. No radiation. Nothing. Just a massive object moving with impossible grace. Without warning, the obsidian shadow disappeared. Gone. The Council fleet scrambled. Panic rippled through command crews. Krell stood at the main viewing deck, eyes wide, watching the dark. Then, one by one, Council ships began losing power. Their weapons shut down. Their shields collapsed. Engines stopped cold. No explosions. No attacks. Just silence, spreading ship to ship like a wave. A gentle, silent force taking control without a shot fired. Then, just as suddenly, the obsidian shadow reappeared, behind the Council fleet. The warship drifted calmly back into formation, undisturbed. One by one, Council ships regained power. Systems rebooted. But the message was clear. Earth didn't need weapons to win. Back in the Council chamber, the silence was heavier than before. Krell's hands clenched. His voice, for the first time, was uncertain. What was that?" Jack's hologram returned. "You wanted transparency," he said. "You just received a demonstration. We do not seek war, Chancellor. But we will not be treated as a child species any longer." The chamber remained quiet. No one interrupted this time. Jack continued. 50 years ago, Earth was forgotten. Abandoned. We survived on our own. We uncovered something ancient, something powerful. We studied it. We adapted. And now, we return not as servants, but as equals." Counselor Arjen Vel leaned forward. "Captain Voss, where did this technology come from?" Jack paused, his face thoughtful. "We found it buried in the ice of the outer system. A relic. A vault of ships. We still don't know who built them, or why. But they accepted us." "And do you control them?" Krell asked quietly. Jack looked directly into the camera. "They let us command them," he said. "But control? No. They are more than tools. More than weapons. They are waiting. And if we misuse them, I believe they won't stay silent." The hologram vanished. For a long moment, no one spoke. Krell Xer stood frozen, unsure whether to shout or retreat. Council members whispered to each other, shaken. Some looked at Krell with doubt now. Earth had not attacked. It had warned them, with precision and restraint. And that made it even more dangerous. Far above the Council moon, the Terran fleet remained still. Not threatening. Not retreating. Just waiting. Captain Jack Voss stood once more on the observation deck, his hands folded behind his back. "Now they've seen," he said quietly to Rena beside him. She nodded. "Do you think they'll stand down?" "I don't know," Jack replied. "But I know one thing now." He looked at the black walls of the ship, then at the stars beyond. "They're listening." The Council was shaken. For the first time in its long history, the United Galactic Council had been forced into silence by a single fleet, Earth's dark matter warships. No weapons fired. No ships destroyed. But the power shown by the obsidian shadow had left its mark. Sensors failed. Engines collapsed. Defense grids were turned off like lights. All without warning. Without effort. Some delegates feared. Some admired. But all knew this was a new age. Earth could no longer be ignored. High Chancellor Krell Exor stood alone in his private chamber, high above the council hall. His metallic hands clenched behind his back. The stars beyond the glass wall offered no comfort. The council was splitting. Several members, like the Ternasai, the Alari, and the Silthari, now spoke of diplomacy and peaceful cooperation with Earth. They saw potential. They saw unity. But others, including the Dathari, the Zoontech Hive, and the Kolani, whispered of preemptive strikes, of fear, of control slipping through their fingers. And Krell? He saw one thing: a threat. He turned toward the shadowed corner of his chamber. A voice came from the dark. Soft. Sharp. We have the device. It's ready. Krell didn't turn. Will it work against them? The figure hesitated. It's untested. But it disrupts energy signatures at the quantum level. If we detonate it near their fleet, yes, it could shut them down. Krell nodded slowly. Do it. The figure faded into the shadows. On board the Obsidian Shadow, Captain Jack Voss stood once more in the war room, deep within the ship's core. The holographic display above the table showed Council fleet movements. A small ship had broken formation. A diplomatic shuttle, according to tags. But Jack's instincts said otherwise. They're planning something, he said. Commander Rena stepped forward. The shuttle just passed into our outer perimeter. No weapons. No signals. But it's too close. Jack narrowed his eyes. Bring the ship around. Shields up. Lock tracking. But do not fire. The Obsidian Shadow responded instantly. Without sound. Without command delay. The warship turned smoothly toward the small shuttle now drifting near the edge of the fleet. Inside the shuttle, hidden behind layered shielding, the quantum disruptor device ticked down. Its internal core began to hum. Its job was simple: burst a wave of energy to cripple dark matter-based systems. A last-ditch weapon. Not designed to destroy, but to neutralize. A blinding flash erupted in the dark. For a moment, everything froze. Then nothing. The Obsidian Shadow didn't blink. The Terran fleet didn't move. No lights dimmed. No systems failed. But something else happened. The black surface of the Obsidian Shadow began to ripple. Its hull shifted like liquid. Patterns moved across it, circular, ancient, unreadable. Then a sound, low, deep, vibrating through space itself, reached every council ship and station on Caltris. A voice echoed inside every mind nearby. We are aware. The warship's hull glowed faint red. A pulse shot outward, not to destroy, but to warn. The shuttle drifted dead in space, systems fried instantly. The pilot inside, an operative in disguise, collapsed, unconscious. Inside the Obsidian Shadow, alarms flickered, then stopped. Everything was calm again. Rena stared at the display. What was that voice? Jack's face was pale. Not us. He turned to the center of the ship, the core chamber, where the heart of the warship pulsed. He had seen it glow before. But never speak. Never reach out. He remembered the vision he saw once, back when he first entered the vault 50 years ago. A dark sky filled with black ships. A war long forgotten. A voice that said, "We chose you." Now he wondered if that voice had ever left. Back in the council chamber, chaos returned. Krell Exor tried to speak, but was drowned out by shouting. You attacked them. Counselor Aryan Vel roared. You launched an unprovoked strike. It was a defensive test, Krell lied. And it failed. What now? Do we bow? No, said Counselor Mava. We listen. The chamber divided once again, but this time, louder, more passionate. Delegates were no longer afraid of Earth. They were afraid of what Earth had awakened. Captain Jack Voss stood before a new council meeting, this time, invited formally. His hologram appeared in the center of the chamber. No aggression in his stance. But something had changed. There will be no retaliation, Jack said, because the ships won't allow it. He paused, letting that sink in. We don't fully control them. We guide them. But they are more than machines. They are relics. Guardians. And now, they are aware. Delegates exchanged glances. Some confused. Others terrified. Jack continued, voice clear. You've seen what they can do. And what they choose not to do. That choice is the key. Earth will share what we've learned. Under one condition, respect our sovereignty. We will not be controlled. But we will cooperate. Counselor Mava nodded. And if the council refuses? Jack looked around the room. Then the galaxy will shift. With or without your permission. Silence followed. Even Krell had no reply. Later, alone on the Obsidian Shadow, Jack stood at the core chamber. The heart of the ship pulsed gently with red light. He stepped closer. The wall shimmered. A new symbol appeared, one he hadn't seen before. Rena entered quietly. What does it mean? Jack shook his head. A warning. Or a sign. She looked concerned. Do you think it's them? Whoever made these? Jack turned to her. I think they're still watching. And I think they're waiting for us to prove something. He placed a hand on the core. We're not just holding power, Rena. We're being judged. The council chamber was quiet. Too quiet. The usual noise, arguments, whispers, overlapping voices was gone. 23 delegates sat in silence. The air was heavy with one shared thought. They had seen too much to ignore and too little to understand. Captain Jack Voss appeared once more in the center of the chamber, standing tall inside the hollow projection. His face was calm. His tone, steady. You've seen what we can do, he said. You've seen what the warships are capable of. He paused. But you've also seen what they chose not to do. He let that sentence linger. It was the truth. The Terran fleet could have crippled or destroyed the Council Armada. They could have responded to the sabotage attempt with full force. But they didn't. The dark matter warships held their fire. Not because of fear. Not because of hesitation. But because of control. And that, Jack knew, was Earth's greatest message. He looked at each delegate through the projection. We didn't come here to conquer. We didn't come to threaten. We came to return. Counselor Arjen Vel nodded slowly. You seek peace, but you speak from power. Jack didn't deny it. Because peace is only respected when it comes from strength. That's a truth we all know. High Chancellor Krell Exor remained silent. His face was unreadable, but his authority had faded. His attempt to strike fear into Earth had backfired. His allies were turning on him. Quietly, one by one. Counselor Mava finally spoke. Captain Voss. If Earth is willing to share some of its findings, not weapons, but knowledge, technology that can help us all, then the Ilari will support your return. Others followed. The Ternasai will agree. The Silthari as well. The votes began to shift. The tide turned. Even those who feared Earth now understood the truth. They had no choice but to accept the Terran Union's return or risk war against a force that had barely revealed its limits. Jack bowed his head slightly. We will cooperate. On our terms. We will not give you control over our ships. We will not allow more spies. But we are open to peaceful exchange, trade, and shared research. Krell stood now, his voice low. And what of the warships? What happens when they choose to act, without you? Jack met his gaze. Then we'll all have to live with the consequences. Krell narrowed his eyes. Is that a threat? No, Jack said. It's a warning to all of us. The council passed the vote by a narrow majority. Earth was granted recognized independence and allowed to remain in neutral space. Formal talks would follow, slower, cautious, but real. The crisis had ended. War was avoided, but only barely. That night, the lights inside the obsidian shadow dimmed to a soft glow. The ship drifted silently above Caltris, no longer under threat. Inside the command deck, Jack stood alone, watching the stars through the viewport. Rena entered quietly. It's done. The council voted. We're in. Jack didn't turn. For now. You don't think it will hold? I think peace this fragile needs watching, Jack said. Constantly. She stepped closer. Do you think they'll come back? He knew what she meant, not the council. The builders. The ones who left behind the dark matter ships. He nodded once. Yes. I think they never left. He tapped the ship's wall gently. They're watching us. Measuring us. Rena looked around. You think this is all a test? I think, Jack said, we've passed the first one. Deep in the blackness of space, far from council eyes, something stirred. A dormant dark matter ship, long buried in an asteroid field, blinked awake. Its hull shimmered with faint red lines. It rose, slowly, silently, its core glowing from within. Inside its mind, ancient protocols activated. A signal pulsed across the stars, low, precise, and old. A message not meant for machines. A message not even meant for Earth. But the signal said only this. One world has awakened. Let the others be found. Back aboard the obsidian shadow, Jack turned away from the stars and walked the quiet halls of the ship. He had faced the council. He had defended Earth. But deep inside, he knew this was only the beginning. Not just for humanity. For the galaxy.